Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Caption Life, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society and vice versa. Coming to you from the Zoom Tree Fort of Solitude deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Kevin.
And from Indianapolis, I am Sean. And before we get started with this episode, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And follow us on social media at Caption Life on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. You can also find more information and past episodes about us at thecaptionlife.com.
Hey, and this is a very special episode of the podcast. As you may know, this past weekend, the release of the most recent MCU movie of Phase 4, Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. I want to make sure I say it the right way. Because we are movie geeks, we're comic book movie geeks especially. We really wanted to discuss this with everyone, about the movie, about our reaction to it, what it means for the future of the MCU. But before we get started, we do have a special guest reviewer on our show. You may remember her from way back, episode 40, which was just a few weeks ago. And we brought her on our show to talk about her webcomic Everpresent. And we enjoyed having her on the show so much that we've extended another invitation for her to come back. And let's talk about the movie. So please welcome Miss Molly Farnsley.
Yay!
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, definitely. We enjoyed having you on, so we want to make sure we brought you back again. So
Awesome.
You're like the sister that we never knew we wanted.
Right.
Even better.
So let's talk about Shang-Chi. I actually had the chance to go see it yesterday on my way home from visiting my in-laws. It's about a 2.5 hour drive to my in-laws house, and we found a movie theater there's actually a big movie theater in a college town on the way that we got to go see the movie for like $5.50.
Oh, nice.
Which is like
that still exists.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was like paying Iron Man prices for Shang-Chi, right? Like it's been such a long time, but I don't know if it was a discount Monday or just because it was a matinee or whatever. But yeah, and it was like the big theater with the luxury recliners and everything. It was
right.
It was just a lucky circumstances, and we got to go see it yesterday afternoon, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll get into what we thought about the film, but what about you guys? Sean, I know you've seen it multiple times at this point.
I saw it like when it first came out because I started I became a movie reviewer for a website called comicwatch.com. And so they wanted me to write a review on the movie and wanted it like pretty quickly since it was coming out. So I saw it Thursday night by myself, and then I saw it Friday night with my wife and my son. And then Saturday night was, just me and my son, because my wife was hanging out with her friends. And so he wanted to go see Shang-Chi again. So we saw it for a second time for him, third time for me. So, and I thought it was really, really well done. It was like a pleasant surprise for me. It was just really unexpected. Like I've heard like good things about it. But I think what I really loved about it is the fact that I didn't really read any of the Shang-Chi comics growing up. And so I didn't know a whole lot about him. But after watching the movie, I was like, I wished I read the comics growing up because this sounds like a great story. I wish I have seen Simu Liu, who plays Shang-Chi, in other films and TV shows, because I've never seen him in anything before this. And I just thought he did such a fantastic job with that role that I'm like, I'm going to go back and see what else he's been in. So I thought it was really great. I gave it, like a 9 out of 10. And even then, the 9 was just something that I think was just more of like artistic difference in that I probably would have changed something with it, but I thought it was just a great film. It's probably going to be, in my opinion, one of the best films that they have in Phase 4, and maybe even longer too. So
I would agree.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a really good jumping off point for a new character. It's an interesting way to introduce a character that's they've actually taken some big risks over the years, like even starting with Iron Man. At the time, Iron Man was thought to be like a tertiary character. He wasn't Spider-Man. He wasn't the X-Men.
Right. Do you know why they picked him? By the way, side note, not to...
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
The Marvel MCU makers that be, they wanted to make and start And so they went and got a bunch of toys, Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, put them in front of kids and say, which toy is coolest, which you want to play with. And they always gravitated toward Iron Man. Like, well, he can shoot like rockets off his arm. And that's just so cool. And they were like, then we're going to do this because we can merchandise it. But that's how it started.
Yeah, that's one of the things that endures Batman's popularity is the fact that every time there's a Batman movie come out, there's 150 different versions of
that is true
of the toy.
I will say with Shang-Chi, like, I was like, I kind of want to cosplay this. Like, this is cool. I want the 10 rings. Like, I really want to see cosplay happen anyway, like of this character. Cause like I could see merchandise happening of this.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I've seen some action figures and stuff in the stores. I think it's unfortunate the way that the films have been delayed because I think toys have been released for it and there hasn't been enough fanfare surrounding the film in order for the toys to like every time I go to Target or Walmart, they're still on the shelf. And as a collector of action figures, I'm like, I'm trying to like not like break the bank and buy everything there was. So I was like, okay, well, if they're still here, I'll get one after the movie comes out and I check it out and I like it. So yeah, I definitely have to go check that out soon.
Oh yeah, Riley's already asking to get Shang-Chi action figures for his birthday. Awesome. And apparently we also found out that they have and this kind of goes without warning, like since we're talking about the movie, there's going to be spoilers in this episode. So if you haven't watched the movie, please go watch it, then listen to this. But we also found out that Target sells like a plush of Murray or Morris, the little mystical creature that so of course that's a hit with kids and everything, and they're banking money off of that, just like how they created Baby Yoda for the Mandalorian and everything.
Can you imagine snuggling the furry butt pig? Like that's the best way I can describe it. The winged furry butt pig.
Today that Morris is like an actual Chinese like mythological creature, as are the nine-tailed foxes and the dragon head horses and they're called foo dogs, those giant lion looking things. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. I just thought you like came up with these sort of things. But okay, cool. No. Not Pokemon. All right, cool.
But I mean, a lot of people confuse it. I think the creatures with some Pokemon creatures, or I think Yu-Gi-Oh is some that they said. But yeah, from what I've read and heard, like I'm not too familiar with Asian culture either, but from what I've read and heard, that does draw in a lot of the Asian culture. And so these are things that are straight from, their traditional stories and their, mystical culture that
I think it's cool.
Yeah. And I think it's really neat. And I know they said like, this is why they really enjoy this, is because this is something that is a lot more authentic than some of the other movies that feature Asian Americans and martial arts and things like that.
Oh yeah. So. And which you might get into later. But I'm very curious China's reaction to this movie, and like, are they going to like it? Do they feel like it's too Americanized, westernized? Do they feel like it represented them well? I'm very curious.
I definitely wanted to get into that, discussing how they market it to foreign countries, especially in Asia. But I think the stuff about the mysticism, the cultural mysticism, like that they are selling with this, like the mythology that they've included in this. I think it's a deep well that they can draw from that most let's say Westerners aren't familiar with these stories. And we're familiar with traditional fantasy characters, elves, hobbits, and orcs and the such. But this I think provides a new kind of like subgenre to play with. And I think it's cool that they introduced that stuff. Like the point that I was making about how they took a risk to introduce a new character that's probably even less known than people like Iron Man or
I did not know who Shang-Chi was. I knew of the Mandarin because of like Iron Man 3 and how that got the botched, which I loved, spoilers that Trevor came back and kind of had a
oh my gosh,
that was sweet. I knew about the dragon, Fin Fang Foom. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's who that was, but he's always been a villain, kind of, sort of. But I mean, I really, really love dragons. So yeah, I'm gonna know about the dragon in the Marvel stories. But yeah, I was like, I don't know. But that's I didn't know anything either.
Yeah, and I think that where they went with all of that, They did a great job of introducing this new character and telling a different kind of story, a very kung fu movie. Like it's very hand-to-hand combat heavy, but then also tying it into the universe that these characters already exist in with a couple of characters. Also, I love that they used Wong as the connection to the rest of the MCU rather than depending on one of the other big name Avengers in order to like make a cameo. They did the same thing with Black Widow. They let her stand on her own. You didn't need Steve to show up or you didn't need another Avenger to legitimize her. And I think they did the same thing here, and including Wong into the story because he's is such a great character on his own anyway. But B, it also gives them another opportunity to showcase more Asian talent, more talent that you wouldn't normally get exposed to.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard that actor Shang-Chi or someone was in Crazy Rich Asians, which I heard is a very good.
So Aquafina is in Crazy Rich Asians, and Ronnie Chang, who plays the club promoter friend with the funny hairdo. He's a comedian. He does a lot of work on The Daily Show. And he was in Crazy Rich Asians as well. And then Michelle Yeoh, who plays the aunt. Right. She's in Crazy Rich Asians as well. Tony, I think
she played the aunt or she played the mother?
No, she plays the aunt in this movie, the one that's
I see.
But she plays the main character's mother in Crazy Rich Asians. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I got flipped on that. So I thought okay.
And then I read yesterday afternoon that and I had seen a video somewhere but I didn't want to watch it ahead of time. It was like introducing, and I want to say it's pronounced Lung or Leung, Tony Leung, who plays his dad, Wenwu. Yeah. Plays Shang-Chi's dad, is a huge star in Hong Kong, like a huge action star in Hong Kong. But he's never been in an English speaking movie. This was his first English speaking role. And
wow.
And he's always been able to speak English. He's just never had to for a movie because most of the movies he's made have been in Hong Kong. Yeah.
You could tell that guy owned that role. I believed him 100% when he's on screen. I was kind of always had that sense of I'm kind of scared of you, man. How is this gonna go?
And
he nailed
the way that he played the multiple arcs of his character from warlord to falling in love,
widower,
through grief,
so
and then back to bad guy, and then ultimately sort of redemptive. And you buy into all of it because it's human emotion. The human emotion of it all. You buy into it because you understand. Like if you love somebody, you understand his plight to try to reunite with his dead wife, and it really does. It's hard for any of us to imagine being a warlord, I would imagine, but but you understand.
I think about it all the time.
I'll tell you what, Marvel has gotten so good in the past several years of giving us villains that you can really relate with. We've come a long way from Malekith in Thor 2. Who I don't even remember his motivations. He was I like darkness because it's cool or something. Now we've got grieving man who wants to see his wife again. You're oh, how are you going to convince him otherwise? I remember thinking this is going to go sideways really fast because I can kind of get behind this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the character development and just how they wrote him because he's not that typical villain. And I know we talked about how Thanos is one of those villains where you can kind of empathize a little bit, and that's not just black and white like Malekith that you talked about. But I think with Wenwu, it's just fascinating because he has all of those roles and all of those layers that he just does a great job of portraying, that you kind of see the journey and how he went from warlord to someone who honestly and truly tried to change his ways to now he jump back into what he knew before, and just, that's how he's coping and grieving and everything. And so it was just really fascinating. And the guy is 59 years old. Like,
what?
Yes, he is 59.
Kidding.
No, he is 59 years old.
Not to lean into the stereotypes, but man, Asian people just do not age. Like
it is just amazing. Like I would never have guessed that, because I thought him and Simu Liu was not like, at the same age, but I thought they were like closer than that. And Simu is I think 32. So that's a 27-year gap.
He looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of Simu Liu, he plays on the show. My wife discovered this show during quarantine, Kim's Convenience, and it's available here on Netflix because it's a Canadian sitcom. And
we just started watching that too.
It's really, really funny, and you really, really identify with the characters, especially because it's about adult kids and their parents. And that's one of the reasons why I was into, they were probably already finished filming Shang-Chi before I got into Kim's Convenience, but the way that they portray like a character that you can relate to on that show, I really bought into to him as an actor. And then also his character Shang-Chi is also very, very relatable because he's been Americanized from living in the United States for such a long time, but he's also like a bona fide heartthrob. Like he's a total stud.
He is good looking.
He's a good looking dude. He's a good looking dude.
Yeah, okay. I'll be honest. Like I used to have like a man crush on Jason Momoa, but like Simu Liu is probably my new one now because I'm just like I just want to see him in everything now because he did a great job with his acting, with his stunts and martial arts. Like he just floored me with his talent. I was just like I need to like see him in everything now. So
and on that note, the choreography in this movie is the best I've seen in a long time. That whole bus scene was just a work of art. And I need to watch this scene again later when I get home because it is mind-blowingly good.
It is like I gotta tell you, with martial arts choreography, a lot of times it's just like pump up the action so much. But what I love about this movie is just like what you said, Molly, is that they combined it so well with it's not just martial arts with between Wenwu and Lee, but also when you see it later on with Wenwu and Shang-Chi when they do kind of similar moves. But they tie in like a lot of like the grace and beauty of it that it romanticizes it, and it tells a story almost with the choreography. I've never seen that in martial arts choreography or anything. I was just so mesmerized by it. I just like it just draws you in, it sucks you in. It was just so good. I agree with you 100%.
Dancing. Honestly, it really did feel like it. It looked like a dance. It wasn't just movements quick here and there with the camera being barely able to keep up or whatever. Like I was mesmerized by what I was seeing. And it was just, and with the rings as well, that was a really nice addition to it. And, really cemented what these are, what they can do, like the threat from them. So the cinematography and choreography together made something quite beautiful.
Yeah, I'll even say this about his performance and the fight choreography. One of the things I think you have to realize, like watching this film versus other Marvel films, is that Simu or Shang-Chi doesn't have a CGI costume that they can hide him behind.
Right.
He's not in a suit of armor. He's not wearing a mask or has long hair to hide behind like a stunt double. That's him.
Yes,
like that's him. He's doing all of that, and he was the stunt performer even before this. He was interestingly enough, he was a stunt performer and a model for stock images. Apparently, you can go Google search and find stock images of him.
He's tweeted a couple of them. Okay. Like he says, like here's a picture of me with some of my friends laughing at people thinking the movie was going to flop, and it's a stock photo that he did like way early in his career. Yeah. Oh yeah, his Twitter is fantastic.
Like you go to
flex actually.
you go to Walgreens and you're like, I'm going to buy this new like picture frame from Walgreens, and it's got a picture of him in it. It just doubles as a Shang-Chi poster.
Right.
So, but yeah, like I think it's great that it's the type of movie. It's it's a big budget action spectacular, but it isn't the kind of traditional thing that you can create. I mean, there's a lot of CG excuse me, there's a lot of CG involved in that bus scene, obviously, but
Right.
I would imagine that it's a lot of him in front of a green screen and on some wires and stuff like that, because you can't fake what they were doing with him in the fight scenes.
No,
I mean, you can enhance it, but you can't fake it.
No.
Right. Well, and in that scene in the bus scene, that I absolutely love, that you can tell it wasn't CGI or anything, was the part where he was going to the driver's seat when the bus driver was knocked out.
Oh, the one take where he's darting through the rails of the bus and swinging around and then jumping into the seat. Yeah, no, that was
sick. And it was, and like you have to do it like so precisely, because he barely made it through those handlebars, and it was just amazing to watch. Like I could watch him do, like I could just watch him all day, like perform in martial arts or just acting or anything. Like he's my new man crush.
Those are the kind of things that Jackie Chan started like about 25-30 years ago, and it doesn't seem like it's a complicated stunt because he's not really in any danger or whatever, like jumping through there like that. But
it's a moving bus.
But it's also like a very choreographed, like a very difficult to pull off choreographed, like somersault through some bars and into a bus seat. And so like I like things like that. I like when they put little Easter eggs, little nods to old school stuff like that in there.
I saw Nobody recently, and if you've seen it, there's this really intense fight scene on a bus, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But now I've just seen the cooler version where it's a moving bus, and there's kung fu and flips and stuff, and so I'm like, okay, they up the ante there.
And get sliced in half, and there was even right. Yeah, I know. Which, by the way, did anybody else also thought like maybe this is a cousin to Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes, I leaned over to Brian. I'm like, Taserface.
Definitely.
I am so sorry I'm sure they're not listening. The couple that was sitting behind us, because Brian and I were chatting the whole time. I'm so sorry. We tried to keep it quiet.
you know what? Speaking of that, like I was actually really, really thankful. This is off topic because I definitely do think that Razor Fist and Taserface are some sort of distant cousins.
Yeah. I think it would be great if they tie him in somehow. Yeah.
But like we were watching the movie and Caroline was like super excited to see it. She's 6 and she can read, but she can't read the captions that fast.
Right.
So like my wife was narrating it for her, like in a really like very sweet, like docile tone. And I was like, oh man, I hope somebody doesn't like get mad. The theater wasn't very full and there was enough distance between us and the next group of people. I think that it was fine. Right. But I don't know why it caught me off guard. This is a movie that takes place in China or in an Asian country. I want to circle back to that in a second. But there were a lot of subtitles at the very big, at certain parts of the movie. And I hadn't thought about that going into it with my 6-year-old. And luckily my wife was a hero and was able to like narrate it for her.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to go back to what I was going to mention before. Then I actually have like just some few interesting facts about this movie and also the Shang-Chi, the character from the comics, and how it ties into this movie, what I think is fascinating. So going back to the fight sequence on the bus, I don't know if anyone else picked this up, but I think there was a nod to Bruce Lee where he does the flying kick from one end of the bus to the other into Razor Fist. Did anybody notice that?
No.
It was very quick. And you don't see it because they didn't really like harp on it, which, by the way, I mean, we'll get back to the fighting scenes because I think there's a lot of other stuff about the fight scenes I think was just really amazing with this as well, too, that ties into cinematography. But it was very quick because you don't see the flying kick until you get to the partition between the bus where you see it. So it was like very quick, but it was just like, it was very much a reflection of what you typically see in Bruce Lee when I think it's either Enter the Dragon or another movie that you see him doing like the flying kick. Yeah, no, it is. There is definitely like a Bruce Lee style like flying kick in there. That was cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah. And if we don't mind, like I'll just kind of jump in on about the cinematography and the fight sequences. One of the things I absolutely thought was fantastic from a cinematographer point of view and some of the fight sequences is one, like they were just amazing, but there was a couple of shots where they did these great camera angles where you thought you were watching the sequence or the action like right there in real time in that place, but really what was happening is you were seeing in a reflection in the transition. So there was that part where Katie was singing Hotel California to one of the henchmen, and it looked like you were watching them right there, but then all of a sudden the henchman swings the melee weapon towards Katie and hits the glass, and all of a sudden you realize that you were actually looking at a reflection that whole time. And then they did the same thing when Wenwu was getting revenge on those that killed his wife. Like you saw a lot of the action in the mirror, and not head on, but you saw in the reflection where, you know, young Shang-Chi was kind of off to the side, but you seen the reflection. And so it wasn't like a trick angle, but it was really impressive of how they captured that. And you didn't get the camera like reflected in that shot as well either. So there was just a lot of stuff about the fight sequences that I thought they did great job. And it was just, you know, the more I watch it, it was just amazing how they did all this stuff. So,
which interesting to note that the guy who directed this movie, and I'm going to go back to his name. It is Daniel Destin Daniel Cretton,
right?
Had not directed a big film like this before.
Right.
He'd only directed like drama pieces. I know my wife and I watched The Glass Castle, which is a really good family drama that he did a few years ago. And then he directed Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx in Just Mercy with Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
What's Captain Marvel's name? I should know this.
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson, yes.
He's named after a cheese.
Okay, there you go. But he's like a native Hawaiian, and he had not directed like a big studio film like this before. And you know, probably there are consultants that you know help with like this is what a CGI kung fu shot is going to look like or whatever. But I think what he brought to the table is like he specializes in telling human stories, right. And like the drama, the connections to the drama and whatnot. That's what like we're especially good. But yeah, like whoever the stunt choreographer, second unit director, whoever these people were that were involved in the making of this film, lots of props to all of them.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's fine. Let me know if you had more that you want to get to. Speaking of like the drama between the characters and like the telling of just human people, I really love that the relationship they have between Katie and Shang-Chi, because like you could have so easily just forced that into be a like romantic subplot, and they didn't. Right. And I really like that. I honestly find some platonic relationships more compelling and moving than many romantic ones I've seen. And I just really like that. It's nice to see like the buddies, the friends who's got each other's back no matter what. Like I love that story arc, and I love that they went that route. So I absolutely think the human characters like were told really well and really real, and I could get behind them.
Right. Well, and I hope they kind of keep that platonic friendship throughout the whole storyline for Shang-Chi and Katie, because I think the way they have it set up works really well. And we don't have enough of those, I feel like, in the MCU that's like a focus, you know, like I know there are platonic friendships, but not to the core of the story like it is in this movie, you know. And I gotta say, Awkwafina, like I loved her in Crazy Rich Asians, but her character in there was like loud and obnoxious, but funny.
Yeah,
and not
she's
loud,
a caricature,
right?
In that movie, yeah,
right, and not loud and obnoxious in a negative way. Just like that's just how the character was, and it was really funny.
Yeah,
and she just did a great job with this one. Like she wasn't like that at all in this movie, but she was still funny and just like hit a whole range of acting skills that I didn't see her be able to do in Crazy Rich Asians. So I'm sure she had a lot of fun doing this because it allowed her to kind of, you know, showcase her skills rather than just kind of being the comic relief in this too.
Yeah, because she she just plays one character. Like she plays Awkwafina in her in most things. And in Crazy Rich Asians, she's a hyper version of that, of herself. And I think in this movie, she's a little bit more muted version of Awkwafina. However, she does get the chance to actually act in this movie, and it's not just
good. Yeah. Now, have you seen Raya and the Last Dragon?
I've heard it because my children watched it in the back seat, like on a road trip, and I've been meaning to get to it.
Let me tell you,
desperately.
First of all, great movie, better than I was expecting. Second of all, the correlations between this and Shang-Chi are ridiculous. Awkwafina is in it. She plays Sisu, the dragon, and exact same character. I'm gonna be honest. And but like the soul sucking monsters, and they have to like go to other places to like come together to work together. I'm like, there are so many correlations, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I was like, this is kind of awesome. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I recommend giving that a watch too, even just for the connections.
Right.
Well, and since you mentioned that, I want to bring it back around to like the audience and the acceptance and like the market for it. Because we have seen an uptick in representation for like Asian storytelling and Asian actors and actresses over the last couple of years, especially with how well and commercially accepted that like Crazy Rich Asians was. So, you know, a year ago, Disney did the remake of Mulan. And then here in the last 6 months, they've done Raya and the Last Dragon. And of course, now we have Shang-Chi. So like they're definitely giving people a voice and giving them the opportunity to shine in a market here in the United States where they normally haven't always had that. But they also are looking to capitalize on a widely untapped market for revenue for them in Asia.
Right.
And, you know, and they have a presence there. They have two Disney Worlds in mainland China / Hong Kong. There's Shanghai and there's Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, yeah.
And then there's two in Japan as well, right, Sean? There's Tokyo Disney and Disney Sea.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
But they definitely have a presence there, but they are now creating IP that they can have an extended like presence for. And I thought that one of the interesting things about this movie, and I was interested going into it, is they don't really spell out like the bad guys like country of origin. He's not specifically Chinese. Like they fly into Macau, and I think obviously it takes place in China, but they don't go out of the way to make it like specifically like Chinese. I think that they wanted to make it.
Did you notice the Easter egg flag, by the way, in that illegal fight club behind Shang-Chi when he was entering? There was the flag of Madripoor, which is the fake.
Oh my goodness!
Which was in Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yes,
right.
And
that's the place where anything goes.
And that's the place where Wolverine always hangs out. Yes. And also Madripoor is a non-existent place, kind of like Wakanda is. And I kind of thought that that's maybe what they were doing. Now he says that they flew into Macau. And that they were specifically in China,
right?
But like I think it was important for them to not have like a very specifically Chinese villain,
right?
Because when in other movies like that, I think that's one of the reasons why they never made the Mandarin a specifically Chinese villain for Iron Man, is because if you have a great white savior fighting a specifically Chinese villain, then people in China won't want to buy your movie tickets.
Right.
And so they skate lightly when it comes to all of that stuff. And I think they do, where some people would argue that that's not authentic, like, you know, that you should just lean into it or whatever. Right. I think that they do a good job of allowing allowing this to represent more than just one like specific area.
Yeah, I my Western self, this was like, my friend put it really well. This was the most Chinese movie I've ever seen.
Right.
In a good way.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I didn't catch this until I started, going into like what else has Simu Liu been in, right? And so we talked about how he's in this movie, and he's also in Kim's Convenience, which is about a Korean family. And I didn't really make the connection until I watched the show, where I'm sure this is something that Asian people have to battle all the time, is that, there are different ethnicities, like, not every Asian is the same in terms of like the physical attributes, right? And so in Kim's Convenience, he plays a Korean male, but he's actually Chinese.
He's actually Chinese,
right? Which there's that line in Shang-Chi when he talks about when he's meeting Katie for the first time, that some guy in the high school said, "What up, King style?" Yeah, and he's like, "Dude, I'm not Korean, obviously." And so I wonder if that's kind of like a little snub to the fact that he played a Korean guy in Kim's Convenience. I
remember ages ago when Memoirs of a Geisha came out, that there was a lot of uproar that Zhang Ziyi was playing a Japanese character, and she's Chinese.
Yeah,
and I think that that's something that you do have to like battle with. I think that they were aiming to make an authentically Chinese film without it like being like labeled as such, because the majority of the cast is Chinese in some sort of descendants. Simu is born in China, but he was raised in Canada,
right? But it was diverse Asian though too. Yes. Like the couple that they were with, they were not Chinese.
Exactly.
So they had a wide diversity, and they actually had like just a lot of great people. Like, for example, I don't know if you all remember Guang Bo, who was the kind of like the male figurehead of Ta Lo. Apparently I read up on this guy because I remember seeing him in Kung Fu Hustle, and I thought he did a great job. But I read about this guy. Apparently he was in the same opera class as Bruce Lee, and they did a lot of the same fighting styles. In fact, I guess he was like his stunt double for a lot of his movies. Wow. And there was a story apparently where I forget what fighting style was, but their master was telling them that they had to do a handstand upside down, and they had to hold that position. And I guess at some point the master told all the students to go ahead and get down. But the guy, gosh, I can't remember his name. I think it's Wan Yu or something like that. But apparently he was still doing a handstand because he fell asleep doing the handstand. So it's just like impressive. Like,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Just the amount of diversity in terms of Asian diversity they had, and just the talent and all the nods that's in there. It's just fascinating because I feel like every time I watch the movie, I learn something new about it, So yeah.
I was even a little note that I thought was kind of clever. I kept messing up the name of the movie. I could not remember what it was called, but as soon as it started, and then we see Sean like parking cars, and I see his little name tag says Sean, I went, Shang, okay, I get it. And then I didn't forget it again. And I thought, what a clever way to tie in, not only to show how he's kind of like Americanized himself, but like how it ties together. Because that is how, if I'm watching an anime and I can't remember a name, I will sometimes come up with a Western or American version of the name, whether in sound, syllable, or what have you. So I thought that was a really clever way to do that.
Yeah,
most definitely.
I think I agree with you. I think that was a great way for them to kind of make it part of the story, but help. There's always going to be people that's going to either have a problem with that or get offended by it, or say like forced diversity or whatever. But I think it says a lot when they're trying to do something that helps you get to that point of understanding like how to say it correctly. And I used to be an academic advisor at a university where a third of our students were from China, and I just saw the struggle that they had with a lot of them took on American names. I wasn't even close to their pronunciation, because they're just like, it is just much easier for people to call me by an American name than to try to teach them how to, pronounce it correctly. And it just, and I feel for them. And I think that this was just, again, just a mind blowing way of like how this movie is just treated with everything. Like, I just feel like every time I watch it, there's something new that I could pick up on it,
I've seen that before too. Like, we have a more diverse group at my school now than we've ever had before. And I have a handful of kids that I actually had 2 kids that moved in from Vietnam just a couple of years ago. And within a couple of weeks, they had decided on like American names to be called. And I also have a student right now who's an immigrant. His parents are African immigrants, and I'm not exactly sure where, but his name is much longer and hard to pronounce, but the first syllable is DAV. It's Dave. So he just goes by Dave now. Yeah. And hey, it it works. But now that you say that, though, it makes Wenwu's discussion about names and about the Mandarin, like it means all that much more, because he's talking about something that that they actually, in order to be accepted into a society that sees them, I wouldn't, not outsiders, but like differently, right? Because we, like, I say Shang-Chi because I'm from Texas, and that's just the way that, like, I pronounce things, and I have to be deliberate about saying it the right way, which is, about the point that Molly made. The reason they call him Sean is so that so that it can be encouraged for you to say it the right way. But it is something that young people of different cultures have to deal with, about like people learning how to say their names. And I think all of that, it's very meta. This exists in this fictitious Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's also something that is taking place like day in and day out for a lot of people on a regular basis.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and on that topic of that whole conversation that when we had about names, like there's a lot of layers into that. So I don't know if you caught on to this, but earlier in the movie, you get to see Katie's family and like and find out that her family had moved to America, that I'm assuming her grandfather, had passed on and everything, and they all moved here to have like a better life and all that. And there's clearly some tension and disconnect between Katie, who is a first generation American, assumingly, and her family that are immigrants. But when we was talking about what's your name and what's your Chinese name, it talks about how your name connects you to your ancestry past. Like, you saw Aquafina react to that she made that connection of like how her Chinese name is important, because it's not like just describing her, but her family. And I think there was a really powerful moment of how it kind of clicked for her, that even though this guy is kind of a villain in a way because he was training his own son to be assassin at the age of 7, just the profoundness of, understanding, that kind of impact. And so I think having this whole conversation about how this discussion about names has just so many layers to it, again, just shows like how great this movie has been in terms of the way they wrote it, the way they thought through it. It's just, there's just so much that goes into it that's just really mind blowing.
Isn't her Chinese name Ra Wen or something? I wonder whatever it was. I'm curious what it means.
I know that her real name is Nora. Like, Aquafina's real name is actually Nora, but I'm guessing that she has a Chinese name.
Where is she from? The actress?
Queens.
Okay.
She was born in New York City.
Okay.
And so because some of the stuff that's been out recently specifically about her is that she's created this character that makes liberal use of like slang and hip hop references and cultural things that aren't Chinese, that she's exploiting or cultural or appropriating other cultures for the character that she plays. And I think if you take a long look at anybody, you can find things like that. I don't think that she's doing it maliciously or whatever. She's grew up in New York City in the 90s and early 2000s, it's just a byproduct of her environment, not like that she was maliciously out there looking to exploit other cultures.
Oh,
Right.
no. And on that note, sort of with the character of Katie, a really good screenwriting, I thought, where it's the beginning and we're getting first impressions and Katie hops into the car and she's like, oh, I never crash. I'm the Asian Jeff Gordon. I'm like, that was a brilliant way to show how Americanized she is.
Mhm.
She knows
Yeah.
who Jeff Gordon is and considers herself that. I thought, okay, I know who you are. I know where you come from.
Right.
Okay. That just immediately made that character. And I thought that was really good writing.
Yeah.
And Sean, you brought up a point that I wanted to discuss because I had a theory about this like during the movie, and I'm guessing there's some version of this on the editing room floor.
Mhm.
I thought when Shang goes back and tells Katie that, you know, that he lied to her, that he did kill the guy that was responsible for his mother's death.
Mhm.
I thought it was going to be a big reveal that was Katie's dead grandfather.
That's a theory that people have been talking about. And that's a question I have because you never get to see that addressed. So I wonder if that is.
I wonder if that there's a take of that exists, that storyline was just cut because it didn't help move the narrative forward,
right.
Or it may have created an unnecessary conflict between those two characters.
Right.
But like when he was like, you know, in his own when he was in his own thoughts about it, I thought for sure. I leaned over to Kathy and I was like, oh, I bet you he's gonna admit that he killed Katie's grandfather.
Right.
And then
That's a cool story arc though.
Yeah. And I think that would have been great. But I can see where like with a 2-hour plus running time already, that it probably didn't need any more.
There might be a way to confirm that. What was the guy drinking when well, no, he wasn't in the bar shoot, because I remember the line from the grandma being like, I left a thing of whiskey and it was taken, you know.
Right.
So he clearly likes whiskey. So if there's any way to like confirm that this guy, did he like walk up into the compound with a bottle of whiskey or something?
I don't know.
Way to connect
well,
it.
and we don't even know if he was even in that scene, because it just said you assumed it's him, but he just said the Iron Gang or the Iron Clan.
The Iron Gang, yeah, or the Iron
right.
Blood. Yeah.
But we don't actually know if that was the person in charge or he just happens to be representative of that too. Yep. So I wouldn't be surprised if they left that open to see if that's something they want to toy with the future movie. I could see it go either way. Honestly, I hope that that's not the case, because I think that would create really bad tension with a great character development. But I mean, who knows? Who knows what would come of that? So yeah. So I thought real quick, and I was doing some research about Shang-Chi from the comics and the movie here, and wanted to touch on a few things real quick. So a couple things about the movie itself is apparently for the MCU, this movie had the lowest marketing budget, but ends up being one of the highest grossing films, especially during the pandemic. I think is phenomenal. And it was so successful that Sony, which has nothing to do with the MCU other than, you know, Spider-Man, but again, not really directly tied into Shang-Chi at this point, it was so successful that not only did Sony decide not to postpone their movie, but they moved it up to October 1st from October 15th.
Really?
They moved Venom up, the new Venom movie. Yeah, I noticed that too. And I thought about that yesterday when the news broke on that they had moved the movie up. I was like, oh, they're trying to strike while the iron is hot, while people are excited about the MCU and about Shang-Chi and everything. They're trying to jump on that bandwagon.
Right. Yeah. But what I thought was really interesting when I was doing the research about Shang-Chi and this movie is that from what I've read, so the character Shang-Chi seems to be somewhat accurate in terms of the character, in that he's a master of kung fu, of martial arts. But his father is different than what's in the movie. I think the character Wenwu may have been created from scratch. And Shang-Chi has never actually interacted with the 10 rings, and the 10 rings was tied to the Mandarin, so it's kind of indirectly tied into it. But in the comics, Shang-Chi was never actually associated with the Mandarin at all. And the 10 rings for the Mandarin was actually like rings that he wore on his fingers and not rings that he wore on his arms. And so I thought that was really fascinating, that this is actually going to be a movie that is influenced by the comics, but I think we're going to see they're going to have a lot more liberal approach to being able to create like brand new content that's inspired from the comics, especially with the fact that, you know, with the mid-credit scene, when you find out that the rings are, you know, sending a message to something using a beacon. Again, that was nothing from the comics that I've been able to find or anything like that. So I think we're going to see that there's going to be some original content that's going to keep us all on our toes, because, you know, we can kind of speculate, but there's nothing that we can say this is exactly from this comic arc or this comic story.
I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has kind of been combining things together anyway, like putting this Faith Stone into the Tesseract or whatever, kind of like just making it a little more streamlined, which I'm all about. Like, what to make a movie work, I understand you kind of got to cut things, make things work. So yeah, it's from what I understand, the 10 rings are originally like individual rings on fingers. Each one could control like wind, earth, this, that.
Right.
And my guess is they were trying to stay away from that. So it didn't seem so much like a Infinity Gauntlet kind of situation.
I think exactly right. I think that was one of the conversations that they had, was they were trying to stay away from making it seem like that, which I think they did a brilliant job of doing it this way. So,
and I think that they make, okay, Shang-Chi is, knows kung fu, but he's not without the 10 rings, he lacks like the power, I guess, to really like be an Avenger. You know what I mean? Like,
although in the comics, he was an Avenger without that.
That's true. That's true. But I think
and this is what I would argue. I'm sorry, Kevin, but like,
go ahead.
This is something I would argue, because I hear people all the time say, like, I don't understand why Hawkeye and Black Widow is the Avenger when you look at Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. I just want to be like, look,
God from space.
I know. Let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, and let's look at all the powers they have. Like, none
exactly
at all, except for Groot, who, you know, like, he's the only one that has any sort of power. So it's just like, I don't understand why people get hung up on those two characters in Avengers, but Guardians of the Galaxy is like completely fine. So
I guess because they have future space, well, not future, you know,
space weapons,
space tech, but still, like,
and they look cool.
Yeah, you know, and so it's just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, Kevin, you're fine. Like, I totally get that. I think that's a valid case that's a valid argument when people like me bring up the fact that, like, he doesn't really fit the squad if he doesn't have that power. I mean, I could make a side argument that it's weird that Katie will tag along to all of his adventures now, and she doesn't even know kung fu.
Right? Yeah,
like, she's like a side.
She can drive though. She can drive.
She can drive, and she learned how to shoot a bow and arrow.
That's true. Well, now they don't need Hawkeye anymore.
Right.
But I wonder if they were like connecting that, like, she's got really good hand-eye coordination with driving, which helps connect to bow and arrow.
Oh, that's a good point.
I wish they made that a little more clear, because if that's what they're going for, great, cool, awesome.
Right.
But I will say that I think what all of this does is it builds the groundwork for a very international Avengers 5.
Right.
Like with Shang-Chi and Miss Marvel and the new Captain America, the new Black Widow. Like, it's literally going to be like their logo is going to be like the Olympic rings,
right?
Just with all the colors of the nation's flags out there,
right?
And I think that it's a step in the right direction for Marvel. It's not just for the sake of diversity and change, but they also understand that the more people that you can say, okay, I see myself in this character, the more people that you can reach with that, the more people will show up to your films. I mean, right. we can look back no further than when Black Panther was released, and the fervor that had in the African American community, because there was finally somebody that looked like them. So, right.
Yeah. And what I love about that, and when you're promoting diversity in a organic way, when you're like just opening up the world, you're basically showing people what's already there. You know,
right.
It's not like you're forcing it into a position that's not natural. Like, you need to enjoy this, or otherwise, you know, you're a bad person. Nobody's going to enjoy anything that's being forced down their throat. But if you just say, here's a chapter of the world you may have never seen before, that's when I'm like, oh, how intriguing, or what have you. You know, it wasn't like, it did not feel forced. It felt
right.
completely natural. And that's when I think diversity is really going to bloom in a storytelling context.
Exactly.
We talked about this with Dr. Howard about like, you know, Madden suggested, like, look, we don't need to make other characters different races, because there are characters of different races that already exist. We just need to tell their stories.
Exactly. Let them tell their stories. And I think that's how it's going to happen naturally.
All right. So good discussion on Shang-Chi, guys.
Yeah,
this was
a lot of fun.
It was longer than I anticipated it would be, but that's how good the movie is that we just got into the conversation, and we couldn't, like the maze into Ta Lo, we couldn't find our way out.
Exactly. It ate us up.
That's right.
New fear of mine now.
The trees like collapsing onto you.
Yeah.
So, did either of you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode of The Caption Life?
To get it on Blu-ray. That's all, or guess on Disney Plus, whatever.
You know, I do believe that I will still buy the Marvel movies on Blu-ray just in case something drastic happens and we lose like the power grid or the World Wide Web.
Yeah, Kevin's very much a doomsday kind of person.
You're just expecting the
I don't have like creamed corn in a basement, like cans and cans as cans, but I do have an extensive Blu-ray and DVD collection.
Right. More you know, hardware, quote unquote, in terms of like 90s technology, just to fall back on.
I still have a VCR.
Yeah.
Yay.
But I always remind Kevin, it's like, but if an EMP bomb ever goes off, then you know that's pretty much useless too.
You know what? I've got 2 children and a stationary bike that I will engineer it to run electricity. Like, you guys got to pedal hard if you want to watch Shang-Chi on Blu-ray.
That's great. That's so good.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say there's still a lot of questions I have, which we don't have to go into these because I know we've talked, you know, quite a long time already, but I think there's still questions that are either going to be left unanswered or it's going to kind of be indicative of something that's coming up later, right? So first of all, Bruce Banner no longer Professor Hulk, right? Like, obviously that's the moment that everybody was talking about, like where there's a big gasp that you read about in the article, like what happened there. So obviously there's a lot of speculation on that going on, right? The end credit scene where you see Xiaoling takes over the 10 rings instead of dismantling it like Shang-Chi thought, I find very interesting because I know my wife asked me, she's like, so does that mean like she's going to become a villain? I'm like, I honestly don't know, because
I think so.
I think they're setting up to be like, she could be a villain or she could just be a force to be reckoned with, and she could go either way.
Who wants to see Yelena Belova fight Xiaolin?
Which
in the future?
You know what's funny is, as I was watching the whole movie, I was starting to get disappointed because I was like, Xiaoling is actually getting upstaged by Shang-Chi because she is like on equal footing with Shang-Chi. So like the whole time I was watching the movie, I was like, I'm kind of disappointed about that part. But then when I saw the end credit scene and she took over 10 rings, I was just like, okay, that actually makes it a little bit better, because they're setting it up to where she's, you know, going to be kind of on her own and showing that, you know, she's a force to be reckoned with there.
Yeah,
right?
and she still has Razor Fist
right
to hang out with, to do her bidding.
And Taser Face.
Razor Fist totally sounds like one of the bad guys from like the Masters of the Universe, though.
Yes. But did you guys notice in Ta Lo when like the soul-sucking monsters were coming down and he was trying to fight them, and they're like, your weapons will do no good. You need to listen to us. And he tries to fight, and then okay, what do we need to do? It was the exact same vibe of like Captain America landing on the hood of the car and being like, I need men in these buildings. Get that perimeter. I need to listen to you. Okay, I need men in these buildings. I was like, yep, same vibe.
And he breaks off of his Razor Fist and replaces it with like the dragon scales,
cool.
Like that they're just immediately interchangeable. He's got
way to adapt, bro. Way to adapt.
They should have just called him Swiss Army Fist.
Oh, that's not bad either. Band name called it. I like it.
Swiss Army Fist. Now performing on the side
already.
stage, Swiss Army Fist, playing their number one hit. I don't have a hit. I'm sorry. I should have thought that out.
They're a work in progress.
We should work together. That's the name of that. We should work together. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot. Like, do we even know who sent the postcard to Shang-Chi yet? Like, I think we assume it's Wenwu, but I don't think it's ever got confirmed.
Oh, do we ever see Wenwu's handwriting? Could we like compare it?
I don't know.
No, but it does seem like that he played the kids against each other to get them in the same place.
Maybe. I mean, and it could be, but like, I don't think it ever got confirmed. So I wonder if they intentionally left that open for like another story in the future.
It's possible. I think they implied it by the fact that he needed both pendants.
I don't think Razor Fist wrote it. If he's a writer. Painstaking with the knife in the hand. I don't know.
No,
he just would have took the blade off and put a pin on.
He has a deluxe quill that he puts in there. He also has an iPad stylus. He also has an iPad stylus that he can put on there, and
oh, that's great. Crayon.
Who do you think designed all of the artwork for his car? He did that on an iPad Pro.
Yeah,
with Procreate.
Yeah.
Done.
Exactly.
What do you think, boss? Is it pretty good? I think it's pretty good.
Razor Fist. Oh man.
So inspiring artist.
Yeah.
He's like, you should see my watercolors.
Yeah. Awesome.
I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't reveal who the death dealer was. He kind of got a
that was
an unceremonious like
cool death though.
Yeah.
Kind of metal.
Yeah.
Did you notice like there's a character from, and we're going down the rabbit hole now. There is a character from Daredevil that has a very similar like kabuki mask thing that Daredevil fights in the first season of the Netflix series, and I want to say his name is Akiri, but I remember because I read the Mark Waid and Chris Samney Daredevil series, and I just thought that the artwork that Chris Samney did to like show that fight and like how great the choreography and from the panels was that that Daredevil fights him in the television series as well, and I thought maybe that there was some sort of connection from the two of those, but there's a kindred spirit out there in the hand, right?
Yeah,
but the hand is a Japanese
yes
gang too though, so
yeah, so there may not be any correlation.
Maybe no correlation whatsoever. But seriously, the mask like seemed very familiar to me.
You know what's interesting, since you brought up Death Dealer, is there was something that I caught that I wonder if they're going to explore this a little bit. But what's interesting is that, I think we see in superheroes the whole mantra of like, we don't want to be like the bad guys and kill people, right? Even though they kill people all the time. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting is that in that scene where Shang-Chi had Death Dealer pinned down, he was actually getting ready to stab him and potentially kill him until his father comes and intervenes. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if we're going to see that as a theme later on, where he's going to struggle with kind of trying to push away. Right. Yeah. Because he's a trained assassin. And so that's kind of his thing. But he hesitated. He thought about like all the things that he'd done to him when he was growing up, but then he was about to kill him. And so I wonder if that's going to be a theme they're going to explore later on, is, him trying to suppress his training of like killing people and try to dismantle that from his mental processing, so. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine the kid that was doing karaoke of Whole New World was also like faces in.
Right.
Sean versus Shang.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. This was a great conversation. And I feel like we could talk like more like for hours about this, because I feel like there's just so much more to unpack. But yeah.
I would love to, but I have opening shift tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
my commute is a lot longer now that I've moved. Oh well.
Yeah,
well, on that note, then
I also don't work from home anymore either, so
right.
I got to get up and face. But you know what? Tomorrow is dressed like a rock star day for like Spirit Day on my campus, and so I'm gonna be putting some like blue stuff into my hair and maybe into my mustache and stuff, so I can look real metal.
Do it.
Yeah, I'll send pictures.
Yes. Post it on the social.
Yeah. So if you just listen to this review, check out our Instagram and Twitter for pictures of me with blue rock star hair.
Yeah.
Be the new MCU hero.
Right? Smurf guy.
Papa Smurf and the Rockers.
Papa Smurf, yeah.
Guy.
I should wear like red pants
and maybe
white hat.
Yeah,
the white hat. Yep, I'd see a band that was called that.
Right. Sounds like a band from Parks and Rec.
They would open to Swiss Army Fist.
Yeah, right. Swiss Army
They're
Fist.
Not there yet.
Yeah,
they're not there yet.
Singing the sweet melodies of Far Far Away. Here is Papa Smurf and the Rockers. Okay.
Singing their hit title. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We're just friends, Kevin. That would actually be on the Swiss Army Fist album. There would be a song called We're Just Friends, Kevin. And that's going to wrap up another episode of The Caption Life. We hope you enjoyed listening. Please don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever major podcast platform you listen to. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Caption Life. If you like what we're doing, give us a shout out, tag us in a post. For more info on us and all of our previous episodes, including episode 40 with Molly Farnsley, you can go visit thecaptionlife.com. Until next time, go see Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Go see Shang-Chi.
Yes, do it.